What's that?
I was on planning, I was on.
Thank you.
I'm going to call to order the January 30th Building and Grounds Subcommittee and Committee of the Whole. And this should be very brief. We just need a vote to request the use of property at Lynn English for the carnival during the April vacation. The principal's on board, Mike Donovan's on board. It's not going to interfere with the portable classrooms that'll be going in, so it's really not an issue. And in fact, I don't think we've ever voted on this, even though they've had it there several years. So I recommend the motion to approve.
Attendance, right?
Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry.
Mr. Ford,
Present.
Mr. Castellanos,
Present.
and Ms. Gately.
Present.
And motion?
I make a motion to request the use of property at English High School for carnival.
Mr. Castellanos,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Gately. Motion passed.
Yes.
In second yet.
Can I get a second?
I have just a quick question, of course. We're in the middle of a motion, but I do have a question.
I amend my motion to, do we have to,
Just a quick one, and I should have asked earlier.
There was no second, so there
Yeah,
really
there was never a motion, so go ahead.
So the question I have is, like, I will wholeheartedly will approve this, because I think it would be a great thing, but it just like our responsibility as far as legality. John?
She wants to know about liability.
Liability.
Well, I haven't seen this request, but it always goes through the city,
Yes.
and they demand liability policy. You know,
Yeah,
in
it's
the
all
past,
going through.
So I assume they're setting up in the same manner.
So it's
We've
okay.
never voted on it down here, as John stated. But the city council has voted on it. He asked for liability policy. I know that the solicitor's office does. I can check for you.
All right, can we approve it and just have them
Well,
check
the
on it?
liability would be on the city anyways, correct?
No? The carnival has to have a liability policy
John,
that they
can I ask
present
a
to the city.
question?
Yeah, I do. I know that.
What?
I'm going to ask a question.
Mr. Caller?
Okay, because this is the first time we've ever seen that, so I don't know why that is, and who is having the carnival
City of Lynn. It's to raise money for the fireworks.
for the fireworks? Okay. And if there's any damage to the field, because the fields are in bad shape to begin, we hear this all the time, so we're just wondering. They will bring the fields back up for,
I talked to Mike Donovan, he said, yes, they will.
great.
Just a question, are those fields part of the school, or are they part of the park?
I think it's parking commission,
Okay.
number
Still
one,
part
but
of the city.
I think part of it, though, belongs to the English high school, the property that's close to the site.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the reason they're asking.
Yeah, softball diamond, then it belongs to the
Right.
park commission.
Okay, Brian.
Second?
Oh,
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Castellanos,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
and Ms. Gately.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Bring it to the full.
Second.
Yeah, that'll be brought to the full committee. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. The 4-minute meeting is adjourned. Should have been a 2-minute.
I got you in my
Big
peripheral.
Donna. Yeah.
Had you in the peripheral. I seen you in the peripheral. And I felt the coach, coach mode. And that's good. They're gonna be great.
I think they brought to us this time because of the portable classroom.
Yeah.
Classroom going in.
How's the place? Oh, it's looking great. It's coming together. I get to come home with a crock pot meals every other night. It smells good. No, I'm serious though. It's coming. I come home and it's just like the smell hits you right in the face.
write a letter to you.
We're gonna, we're,
I like
it's-
it.
we're gonna go with the trustees and stuff.
She wants to win presidency.
Eli, I like
I'd like to call the Personnel Subcommittee meeting and a Committee of the Whole to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Capola,
Present.
Ms. Gately,
present.
and Mr. Satterwhite.
Present.
And observing is Mrs. Cassianis, Mr. Ford, and Mr. Nicholson.
We have just one item on there, the attendance supervisor. Yes, Dr. Tutwiler?
So, in deference to your request, the last meeting started to reach out to districts that we would consider peer districts, same demographics, roughly the same population. And what I quickly realized is that there are markedly different approaches as you go district to district. For example, one district close to here that shall remain nameless has 0 attendance supervisors. They have an entirely different model. Another district, which is actually further away, has attendance counselors in the high school level and no supports for middle and elementary. And so really quickly it became sort of an exercise in futility to present to you those because they're just not even close to or reflective of what we're doing here. But I would like to turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Powers to share a little bit more about our thinking about the model that we have.
I know, bad. Truancy and chronic absenteeism are complex problems. Our young people who experience truancy are vulnerable to the usual suspects of our urban narrative: at risk, dropout, underemployed, unemployed, unwed mothers, and multiple fathers. The standardization and normalization of this experience too often makes routine our discourse, our response, and our interventions. As a community, we talk about disconnected and disenfranchised students, but too often we just don't do enough to change their reality. Our policies and protocols fall short. How might we change the experiences of our most marginalized students and families? How might we alter our dialogue and design a different story? How do we do better? LPS has been working hard to address a complex problem. While we don't have all the answers, we have looked to create new systems, structures, and processes to meet the needs of our most at-risk students and families. One such example is Every Student, Every Day, our attendance initiative that is one part of a larger SEL focus and framework that is currently being designed and built. With our attendance initiative, our design has focused on establishing equity, understanding that our focus is students in the margin and they deserve our attention and our efforts. Designing a framework that understands absenteeism is the symptom of a larger problem. Creating a culture and climate of support, knowing that our students and families who will be the focus of our interventions have many hurdles and many struggles. We have concentrated on the development of systems as well as personnel that support every student attending school every day. Establishing 2 supervisors of attendance has been integral to our planning with the attendance initiative. The job has departed from what was and has been redesigned to lead schools in proactively identifying and servicing students with attendance concerns. This proactive approach is innovative and acknowledges that we can't fix a problem by continuing to behave in the same manner that we always have. We must employ radically different methods to address a multifaceted problem. This job has assisted schools in creating systems of support and a focus on meeting the needs of all students. The supervisor of attendance is expected to lead wellness teams and act as a facilitator in this meeting, support data collection and dissemination, oversee tracking systems connected to the initiative, support outreach and referrals for students and families, support schools in the creation of internal protocols that improve culture and climate, collaborate with the court primarily in matters related to CRAs, collaborate with community agencies in creating public awareness on the importance of student attendance. Each supervisor of attendance has been given a strategic caseload of 12 to 13 schools that takes into account servicing multiple levels due to the demands of court involvement. The enrollment in each school is also taken into consideration in assignments. Each supervisor of attendance has an overall enrollment of approximately 8,500 students. As our design has evolved, we have also looked to increase the supervisor of attendance responsibilities. One such example is in CRA cases. The current conversation is to have each supervisor identify our most at-risk students who are court-involved and engage the court and families in a different manner with higher expectations for formal court letters, intimate knowledge of concerns, and oversight of needed interventions. With only 1 full year under our belt, the 2018-19 accountability data speaks to an improvement in both chronic absenteeism and attendance. The framework built to date has supported this growth. 8 schools exceeded their chronic absenteeism target. 2 schools met that target. 5 schools improved but didn't meet their target. The high school group not only lowered their chronic absenteeism average, they easily exceeded their target. The non-high school group did not meet their target, but did lower their chronic absenteeism percentage. With respect to attendance, 16 out of the 25 schools had better attendance. 3 schools had exactly the same. All the high schools had better attendance. Of the schools that declined, none went down by more than 0.3 of a percentage point. The accountability data speaks to good outcomes. More importantly, however, the district is beginning to write a different story to build stronger structures of support for our marginalized students and families, and we need to remain committed to doing better. While it is important to celebrate our successes, we also need to acknowledge the enormity of the struggles before us. We need to remain committed to and focused on building structures and supports that will continue to identify our most at-risk students and provide the necessary supports that will improve student attendance and achievement. 33% of our high school students continue to be chronically absent. This is a staggering statistic, and I caution us from normalizing it. Our at-risk population at all levels continues to grow. Our new model has moved away from an enforcement lens to an SEL lens. This requires us to do more than manage absentee caseloads. We must intervene if we expect different outcomes. Having 2 supervisors of attendance is the wish and the ask of the district. With 1 supervisor of attendance, we will undermine the structures and supports we have put in place, profoundly limit our ability to move forward, and compromise our commitment to servicing every student every day.
Attorney White.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Patrick, for the update. I love that you finished your presentation with the SEL lens, and I think that that's an important thing, and I think that we're all in agreement at this table that SEL is an extremely important tool for us to have, and all of our leaders should have at least some knowledge of SEL and some experience or go through some sort of professional development to have better understandings. So because of that, I think that with regards to qualifications or within this section of the job application, I think that we should add two things. One would be experience tracking and understanding data, preferably with data on truancy maybe and attendance. That would be something good to have in the qualification. I can repeat it again later on. If we approve it, will be with these changes. And knowledge of or experience with the SEL standard. Is that a good?
I think it's an individual who has that lens. You know, I think they're in the human services field.
That's more broad.
I don't think it's law enforcement.
Correct.
Per se.
So I like that wording that you said. So I think that would be important, and I think that those should be within the qualifications.
I do too.
I think that there's just a few more, but I think that when we talk about the 2 years of experience working as a parole, probation, or law enforcement official, can't we just say working in the criminal justice field as opposed to being as specific?
I don't know that you need somebody working in the criminal justice field. I think we need to move away from that.
Okay.
I think that's
So originally we had
that's a struggle.
Okay. We had that crossed out.
It's not what the job is.
Yeah. Okay, so let's collaborate and try to get to the words that we agree upon, and then we can move forward.
Ms. Gately?
Kim, I am right over this, and I was thinking in my mind what would make this job, which is really important, with the social emotional learner, with getting into the homes, taking care of children, making sure they get to school, having a good understanding of that. And I couldn't help but think that maybe instead of a bachelor's degree, we could ask for someone, not a master's degree, because it's a supervisor position.
Yeah.
And study in social work, mental health, education, or other related fields.
I agree.
I'd like to focus at the social work and mental health, the ability to demonstration of knowledge of laws concerning school attendance and of services available to students with attendance problems. I'm thinking it might be a social worker that has supervisory experience, and that's what I wrote up here. So it said possession of one of the following.
Why one?
He asked why
we could
one.
rewrite that piece, and I totally agree with you.
So here, what I sat down and I was focusing on this, 2 years of experience working, I wrote, as a social worker or mental health counselor,
Yep.
and with experience as a supervisor with juveniles and or in home investigations. That's what I wrote. I didn't think that we needed the parole officer. I think that they have to have an understanding of the courts, the understanding of social life. Like, it was actually Mr. Castellanos that brought it to my attention that this would be a perfect job for a social worker. So I just sort of run.
Well, I agree with Mr. Castellanos.
Oh, me.
Thanks. Thanks, guys.
So then number 2 would be a master's in psychology, school counseling, or social work, or at an accredited college. Number 3, an initial or professional mass license. I didn't understand why we would have to have school counselors. Schools, couldn't it just be counselors, psychologist, social worker, adjustment counselor? Cross out 4. And then a combination of experience working with school-age children and education in psychology, guidance, and or social work at an accredited college. That's what I said.
And that's why I said why one, because they're all good.
And I'll let, he made some changes.
Oh,
So
sorry.
I'm done.
I'm just going to continue with the other changes, if that's just fine? Okay.
Okay, we have some others that want to speak.
Tonight's
Yep.
meeting was to approve the position.
No, we were
I
still,
didn't think we were discussing last time as to whether we required the second position.
Yeah.
I thought tonight was just to approve the position, and then we can rewrite the job description.
we tabled it to have further information from the other side. That's what happened at the last meeting. They brought us the further information, which sounds like we're on the same page now, and we're discussing the changes that need to be made to the job posting in order for it to post.
But we still have not approved the second position.
I think that we
Right.
don't need to approve the second position, we just, because it's still budgeted, right?
Yeah.
All we're doing is approving the posting.
And modifying it.
So that's what we're doing. We're just going over the job posting in order to do that.
Okay.
I think that the second page of performance responsibilities were great. I just, so on paragraph 4, it talks about working collaboratively with all principals, administrators, and teachers regarding, it should say truants and attendance issues, correct?
Yeah, I think that probably needs a lot more work.
Okay.
That was written even prior to, and
Okay. So how,
initiative has really moved forward.
so I want to be able to give you the ability to post something so you can find someone. So what we are saying now is this still needs more work you don't think that we're going to be able to do tonight. Go ahead.
Donna's in charge.
Yes, Dr. Tuckwell.
I think maybe if you were to email us your suggestions for changes, and then at I think we're together the 13th, we can maybe have another
Okay.
subcommittee and present to you
The final.
an
and I'll
evolved
work on it.
posting.
Yep. Mr. Castellanos?
So has the current attendance supervisor been involved with the qualifications and kind of have they been working with you on this?
On the qualification.
Excuse me, on the responsibilities, on just the whole job design itself. Because I think if she's managing a 12 to 14 strategic caseload, wouldn't her feedback be pretty viable to move forward on the next position?
Dr. Tuckwell?
It absolutely would, being a person that's worked in the role. But I just want to go back and echo what Mr. Ford. I think we were prepared to come here to work to ensure that the position stayed put. And with that piece solid, I think we can now go the next step and come up with an evolved posting that reflects the work that happens in that position now.
No, and I definitely support the position. As we go over some of these modifications, I think it is a good thing to talk about with the lens that we want that candidate to have. As I discussed, having a social worker background is important, especially if you're looking to have the interagency communication and background. It's vital. I just have also one question regarding the. So for the 13th, would it be possible to have Kristen, I don't want to call her name, have her kind of give us some feedback, as a committee, kind of give us some information in terms of how she feels about this, to kind of get her perspective. I support the position, but just to kind of give us some more insight in terms of just what does that 12 to 14, that case, what does your caseload look like? I got questions too, just to see how we can help support her now, because as we see the model evolving, and it's in the early stages, it's just good to learn from where the mistakes were in the data collection, the tracking. I don't want to say mistakes, but just how can we improve moving forward with the next assigned position? Because I know there were some barriers that we need to also address.
So we can channel her feedback in in an improved and updated posting. I think what you're asking for would be a different presentation, and that I mean, it's kind of already happened from Carolyn Troy, just sort of an update on the attendance initiative. But if you're interested in sort of a different perspective in that work, we can certainly create a presentation for you on that.
That would be awesome. That'd be great. Thank you.
Man, did you have a question?
I had a couple of comments,
Okay.
and as well, I support. I think when we first came up with this idea, it was a novel idea, it was something different, and I think from what the presentations we've heard and from the discussion tonight, it reflects, I think, really well on creating, approving and moving forward on this position. And I did a little research, and I think it's reflective why it's so important that we do this in terms of other communities. Lawrence with 13,000 plus students, 25 buildings, Fall River with 10,000, New Bedford with 12,000, 16 buildings, 25 buildings. I mean, Lynn is really, in many ways, as we continue to grow, an outlier in terms of the kind of population we have and the needs. So I think that was reflective of the second supervisor position. And I think as we talk tonight, I look forward to seeing the job description that arrives with I think all of the really positive input we've received tonight. So I just wanted to reiterate, I think that this is an important position to move forward on. It's been, I think it really, I don't know what we expected when we first had approved it, but I think it's been a real success, and look forward to the opportunity to see the final job posting.
Donna?
Yes.
I think that we're in agreement that the position is vital and we should have it. I think that at this point, we're going to be provided maybe a Word version of this to add the proposed changes to be presented to the school committee on the 13th for final approval of the posting of the position. Does that sound right, Ms. Capola?
Yes,
Okay.
I would, that's
And
correct.
and I can make that in a motion format so we can do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does it need to be a motion, or do we need to, no motion, you're just going to forward the things to him, and then it will be addressed at the April 13th,
Well,
when we see a completed copy?
I think that the motion would be that the position is needed. So we would agree to that tonight, pending the final approval of the job posting at the next meeting,
And move to the full committee?
and to move it to the full committee. So we're taking it off the table to do that, and that's what I'd like to do tonight.
Okay. Nancy, do you have that, the wording on that? Okay. Okay.
Okay, I'll say it again. I make a motion to remove from the table.
Yep.
And to approve the position pending approval of the job posting at the next meeting. And that's what the motion is.
Okay.
And move to the full
And move to the full committee, sorry.
And I second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
And Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, motion to adjourn. Second,
Second.
third.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Eyes have it.
That sounds good.
Ayes have it.
I'm going to go right into the.
Why is everything getting so hard for me?
You want to sign it, please? I'm going to jump into it, and we'll. Join me in a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask everyone to stay standing and join us in a moment of silence for a number of people who have passed away. Thomas Fogarty, retired principal who passed away on December 5th, 2019. Agnes Raymond, retired food service administrator on December 11th, 2019. Alvin Tagney, retired principal on December 18th, 2019. Eva Caldwell, retired teacher on December 24th of 2019. Deborah Plunkett, retired paraprofessional on January 4th of 2020. Sophie Zietz, retired teacher on January 7th, 2020. And Jennifer Perez, who was an 8th grader at Marshall Middle School. I'd ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. First on the agenda is the minutes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept the first special meeting, the minutes of the first special meeting on January 6, 2020.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are accepted.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting of the Committee of the Whole meeting on January 9, 2020.
Second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Like to
Minutes
ma-
are accepted.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the meetings of the Finance Subcommittee meeting on January 9, 2020.
Second.
Second.
Second is heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Minutes are accepted.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting of the Personnel Subcommittee meeting on January 9, 2020.
Second.
So second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the meeting minutes are accepted.
And I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting of the first regular meeting on January 9, 2020.
Second.
The
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are accepted. Next on the agenda are appointments and elections. First is Christine O'Neill, confidential secretary to the school business administrator.
Yep.
Please, Superintendent.
Yeah.
Please.
I'm just going to
Please.
say that again. Chris O'Neill, who's been appointed the confidential secretary to the school business administrator. I don't see her here, but we see her every day. But we congratulate her publicly, and I'll congratulate her again when I see her tomorrow morning. And the second, Oliver Toomey, who's been appointed the acting department head at Marshall Middle School. Don't see Oliver either, but wish him well in his role at Marshall.
Great. Congratulations to both of them. Next on the agenda is presentations.
I don't know.
Welcome.
If I may just briefly, Leah Stelgis is the Assistant Director for Science in the Curriculum Department and has really been doing some targeted work in developing a strategic plan related to science instruction. So really impressed with what she's done thus far. Thought it appropriate to do an update in this space.
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Tutwiler. And of course, I want to thank all of you for your time this evening. I'm here to share an overview of some really exciting work that's happening in science across the district. So the document that you have in front of you is the up-to-date version of the Lynn Public Schools Pre-K through 12 Science Strategic Plan. The top row of the chart shows 3 multi-year strategic objectives, which are overarching goals for improvement. Beneath the objectives are a total of 20 multi-year strategic initiatives. These initiatives are more specific projects and programs that are aimed at accomplishing the objectives. These objectives and initiatives align with and support the Lynn Public Schools District Strategic Plan developed throughout the 2018-2019 school year. I'm hoping you also have just that first page in front of you as well. Is that from the district one? Great, excellent. So the alignment to the district plan is reflected in both the wording and numbering of those 3 objectives. You will note that each begins with SCI, a shortened version of the word science, simply to distinguish the science objective from the district objective. You will also notice that Objective 2 seems to be missing from the science strategic plan. This is because the science strategic objectives align very well with Objectives 1, 3, and 4 in the district strategic plan. As a result, there is no science strategic objective 2 at this time. Each initiative is numbered based on the objective it supports. For example, SCI 1.1 supports objective SCI 1. Sub-initiatives such as SCI 1.1a and 1.1b fall under the umbrella of initiative SCI 1.1. The Science Strategic Plan will serve as a guide for addressing the various needs in pre-K through 12 science moving forward and ultimately supporting student success in science. This is an ambitious plan for 5 years, 20 strategic initiatives, but we do want to aim high. If we are unable to achieve these objectives or initiatives within that 5-year time frame, we will keep working at it as we are moving in the right direction. However, it's also important to note that this strategic plan is a living document, and it will be reviewed and revised should needs change within that 5-year time frame. The Pre-K through 12 Science Strategic Plan was developed by a committee of 15 LPS science teachers and administrators through a series of collaborative meetings this past fall. All secondary schools were represented on this committee. 6 elementary schools, including Aborn, Cobbett, Ford, Sewell Anderson, Shoemaker, and Washington STEM, were represented to account for the diversity of our neighborhoods. Representatives from English learner education and special education also participated in this work. To develop the strategic plan, the committee followed the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's Planning for Success process. The committee's work was rooted in the 2016 Massachusetts Science and Technology Engineering Framework, the key instructional shifts in the new standards, and current research on establishing effective science and technology engineering programs as outlined by DESE. The committee analyzed LPS data, including but not limited to MCAS achievement, unit assessments, enrollment demographics, and high school indicators. The committee synthesized and incorporated feedback from LPS science educators across the district. It is important to note that the committee analyzed and summarized this data before making connections and identifying alignment to the district plan. It was very encouraging to see how well the science data and teacher feedback supported the strategic objectives in the district plan. The next steps for implementing the Pre-K through 12 Science Strategic Plan include senior leadership support and broader communication to principals and science teachers throughout the district. The initiatives will be prioritized based on the district strategic plan. We will continue to follow DESE's Planning for Success process to create action plans, set outcomes, and determine progress monitoring for the priority initiatives. In closing, I'm excited about continuing to collaborate with science teachers and administrators to take these next steps to improve student success in science. I want to thank you for your attention and this opportunity to share this important work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Member Nicholson?
Thank you. Thanks for a great presentation. Really nice to see the use of this framework in action on a particular subject matter. And obviously, we all see science as a huge strength of the district, and so that's great to see. Just a reminder for me, the colors are they meant to represent the strategic initiatives, and then the white is like the things that fall below each initiative? Okay.
Exactly.
And then are there particular timelines associated with each initiative yet, or is that to come?
To come, yep.
Along with outcomes, I suppose, as well. Okay. One question I had is about when you say under 4.1, develop a plan to involve land and surrounding community partners, do you have particular community partners in mind for that, or is that going to come later to list those out?
So, I mean, we certainly work with a lot of community partners already, particularly in science. I mean, there's great opportunities. A lot of community partners reach out to us, and we reach out to them to say, how can we enhance student learning? So we've got kind of this pool already that we want to continue to develop relationships with, but certainly open to thinking about other partnerships that we don't have yet and considering those as well. And kind of that, I think that outreach would be a part of that plan to involve those community members, is figuring out how to strategically approach that outreach.
Would it be possible for you to share that list of who you consider the current community partners?
Yeah, and I believe too, I think that the kind of the brochure of the district too had a lot of those similar community partnerships already. But yeah, I could certainly provide that information.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Member Satterwhite, and then Superintendent Tutwiler.
Oh, good.
Member Satterwhite.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure that a part of this strategic plan and implementing the plan, we take into consideration, when we review the curriculum, it looks like, which is going to happen on 1.2, that when we pick one, that we provide all the tools and necessities for that curriculum to be successful to the teachers, so they're not buying things out of pocket or making fidgets or whatnot to make it work. I think that we need to provide all the proper tools with that curriculum in this plan to our teachers, so our kids can get the full benefit of that. So.
Definitely. And that feedback and data came out in the strategic planning process with the committee of teachers, and certainly is also represented even in the professional development related initiatives around providing that PD around the best use of the resources and strategies to incorporate those resources.
Perfect. Thank you.
Member Gately.
Hi.
Hi.
How much technology are the science classes able to use, especially on the high school level? Because I taught high school biology, and a lot of programs are out there for biology and technology, and people actually use the computers in high schools, and I'm hearing there's a lack of them, and we need to get them, and we have money, so I want to make sure we fill this need. And the second question I have is, we're going to hear an update on high school design, and I'd like to know if you've been working with Ms. Gardner to maybe come up with ideas for juniors and seniors in high school that could go on to North Shore Community College or go on to Salem State, maybe take a course there. I think, I'm trying to look at where we were. And for one, surrounding community partners and working with that. So I didn't know if you had already started collaborating, because sometimes people do things before the gun, like your big vision and stuff like that. I think this is a great starting point. You did an excellent job. So I just was wondering about those two things.
Sure. In terms of the technology, I don't think that I can really speak to the kind of the number of devices in each building and the access to devices that teachers have. But I certainly, again, hear the feedback about teachers being able to utilize those really important digital resources. Providing professional development is only kind of one step in the process of how they use that, right? It is also the access to those devices, and working in collaboration with the IT department, the data center, to kind of get things up and running smoothly. So that's certainly a part of this plan.
Could you get back, could you check with your science teachers in the high schools especially to see if they need computers, and let me know, or let administrators know, at classical they would like this computers in this class or whatever. So then we can have a list, so when we do our budget, we can make sure that that is budgeted into the supplies for all the, I'm looking at Sheila O'Neill going, yeah, everybody needs the computers. So, but you know what I mean? We're talking about science right now, so I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Dr. Tutwiler.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly that I was going to speak to this in the superintendent's report, but at this point, as of today, we've met with all departments and all but one principal in our budget meetings and doing a deep dive on, their thinking and needs for the next school year. So we've done that, and then there have been 2 community forums, and we're receiving email. That's okay. We're receiving email feedback through the website about folks' thoughts about needs for the next school year and beyond. And then Sheila is going to every school in the district and holding these really thoughtful but short meetings with teachers to collect feedback on what they think, what their needs are. And I can say definitively that there's a strong theme of a need for technology. And so you can expect that when we present the budget at, before May, that there will be a significant, there'll be attention to that.
Thank you. And the second part was,
I've certainly had, kind of very initial conversations with my colleague Shannon Gardner, and she's great about kind of involving, including folks from different content areas in those discussions. I definitely want to continue that, and definitely plan to.
and I love thinking outside the box, Leah. I love it, because that's what we have to do to move our kids forward. And I think you're doing it, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you for the presentation.
you.
Next on the agenda is update on high school design.
If I can just really quickly say, Ms. Gardner, in our second meeting in September, Ms. Gardner gave an overview of the work planned for the year around really looking at the structure of high school and thinking deeply around meeting student needs, opportunities, access, quite frankly, equity as well. And we're really starting to get to a place where things are taking shape. So I asked Ms. Gardner to come back and give an update.
Okay, so you have the update in front of you, hopefully, but it's so I just hit on a few areas, and in terms of the high school schedule, the high school schedule is a big one for us in terms of opening up opportunities for students and being able to work smoothly with the colleges, which is difficult when you have a rotating schedule. And so we've been really trying to work with things. We have a lot of things that you have to work around, like we've got lunches, we've got several lunches we've got to work around, but we're coming up with some plans, and so we thought we were at this point where we should meet with Sheila, and what we came to was that it's time for us to go and make presentations at the high schools to kind of just give them an idea of what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the opportunities are that we're trying to achieve for students in doing this. And so that's where we're going. That's our next step. And also our consultants surveyed focus groups of students to get their thoughts, in which I gave you that were attached. And, I read through them. These were just small focus groups, but, I think the word opportunities leapt out quite a bit for me in some of the feedback from the students. Some of them were really interested in having just more interesting offerings, and the vocational piece and the college piece. I wanted to also talk about our meeting with Jobs for the Future. We met with North Shore Community College and a consultant called Jobs for the Future, which is provided by the Smith Family Foundation, to plan for early college pathways. And I know that you had asked me if we were looking at employment data, so I thought it would be good to show you that we are looking at that with them. And what they did was they showed us like what the regional living wages were, going from Plymouth to Stratford, New Hampshire. Then they showed us Essex County, Suffolk County, so we could get an idea of just the living wage that you would need, the basic living wage. And then we looked at the various occupations and the associate degrees and the 4-year degrees, and what you could make hourly in those, so that when we were, and also we were looking to see, do we have more people in these jobs? Like, is this a field that's growing, or is it a field that's dropping? And so we looked at that in terms of our decision-making process. And we had just a kind of an overview for us at that meeting and talked about some of the things that we could do. We feel like we have a growing IT path in our school, that schools that are all already articulated with North Shore, and that was like a really good area that we saw that we could develop even more of a bigger pathway for students. So that was one thing that we felt good and solid with North Shore on. And then our next step is to meet together with North Shore and Salem State and Jobs for the Future and the Smith Family Foundation. And that's really a good step for us. It's on the books that we're going to be working together, and we're going to be trying to, when we work on early college pathways, make sure that we select things that can work together amongst both schools, so that you're really picking the pathway and not necessarily the school. Because if you do want to go to Salem State, but you want to take the IT pathway that's North Shore's pathway, we want to make sure everything that you're doing in that pathway can transfer over. So we're just trying to be thoughtful in the choices we make and the planning we make as we grow it. Engaging course offerings. I think that adding all these early college offerings is really working on engaging course offerings. I think that's a big step for students to be able to see things that look interesting. They're gaining college credit. At the same time, we have a lot of electives that we think people are interested, staff is interested, we're interested in taking a look at, having small groups look at, and in the humanities, looking at developing some new electives. That might be 2 electives, but it's a start. Okay, and then the After Dark program, we're now planning, Brian O'Connell and guidance counselors are working together on their recruitment process to start the program rolling that we received a large grant for, that will be running a longer amount of weeks, a longer amount of months, and you should be seeing recruitment flyers and things out for that very shortly. Okay, another important point on that. We're going to take information from our planning and everything developing of this program this year to help us as we look to apply for the After Dark designation. I think a good thing that we learned recently was that DESE is making a provision for transportation costs, because that was one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we could see in terms of having kids going from the bigger high schools to LVTI every day. How is that going to be sustainable? So it looks like that DESE recognizes that and is provisioning for that. That's fine.
Great. Thank you. Member Nicholson?
Thank you. I think these are all really exciting, excellent updates. Thank you so much. I think I really enjoyed reading through the student feedback. I thought it was really encouraging that they're as excited about some of these ideas as I think we all are, about building more pathways to college and to jobs, to do vocational tracks. Just a quick note on the engaging course offerings. I know that that you have been in touch with a group of students at Lynn English that has an interest in types of civics courses and curriculum around human rights. That came to mind when I saw this about developing new humanities electives, working with that group. And then not quite humanities, but just in the vein of engaging course offerings. I know we're going to get an update on this later this spring about financial literacy, but I think it's something that comes up a lot about things that students are interested in and find engaging. I was at a forum that the city hosted the other night on housing affordability, and that was something that a couple of the younger Lynn Public Schools graduates had mentioned about one of the issues that they're facing now is what they wish they had known when they entered the housing market, so to speak. So just a note on that. And then I did have for the After Dark program, how many students do you expect that to serve, and what's the criteria for which students are able to participate in that? in that program. Or you can get back to me if you don't.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Let me get back to you on the number of students.
Okay.
So I have the number of shops in my head, but I don't know, doing the quick math.
That's fine. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, what was the second part of that question?
The criteria, so for, is it any student is eligible, or is there a criteria for eligibility?
So the first group that we're going for are the seniors that are on the wait list. Those students should expect to be contacted
That's awesome.
very
That's
quickly.
Great. That's great.
To just get a first shot at being part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we have seats beyond there, then that's where we'll go. Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Member Satterwhite.
I just love how this fits into the whole strategic district plan of how we need to work with the community to really help. You know, we don't have all the answers, and it looks as though you're going to the right people to get the help and information that you need. So I appreciate that. And I know that we'll get more of a definitive update in the next couple of months, but I appreciate the update, and thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Member Castellanos.
I want to thank you for your presentation. Also, add in the public service pathway research. I know I requested a couple questions about that. I really do appreciate you giving that insight and breaking it down. The survey was really helpful, very informative update. The high school design pathway plan definitely is something that is exciting. The After Dark program, to learn that we're going to have a provision to transportation costs is phenomenal. I think that's vital. That's going to open up opportunities for equity. I think it's going to make it fair for opportunities for students who really are going to get a really strong benefit from that opportunity, definitely. Thank you.
Member Gately.
Shannon, as I'm reading through, Ms. Scanda, as I'm reading through what the students are saying, my heart is full, because all students really want is to be heard, and to be heard, and for you to take what they're saying, and for you to be going out to the schools with the rest of the curriculum department and finding this new way to take courses in high school is impressive, and I thank you for all your hard effort. And I think our young man right here may want to speak to this.
I gotta raise my hand.
You're on.
No, it's okay. It happens, Well, I mean, I guess one thing I was thinking about is, going forward with, trying to help seniors and high school people, find jobs and things like that. I'm kind of, not to my own home, I'm kind of ahead. A lot of people in my generation, and I'm always networking, and I think that's something you should integrate. Helping kids network with other individuals in the field that they want to go into. Like, for instance, maybe we can incorporate having kids sign up on LinkedIn, and look at people that work for different companies, start interacting and connecting with people in different schools. That's something I do. I try to get other people to do it as well, but I don't know if you want to try to incorporate that or something like that, just so people can, get a feel of what they like before they fully go into it, waste, time in school. Oh, I did this major, I'm 2 years in, and I found out I don't like it. That happens a lot when I speak to alumni and things like that. So, I think that's something you can put in. Thank you.
I think that's a fantastic idea, and as with everything you do, I'm extremely impressed. Thank you.
I also want to add that I liked your idea as well, and that in this school design work, we really are trying hard to get as much feedback. Like, our next step is to get teacher feedback at the high schools, but that the schedule needs to allow for time that students can maybe go to an internship and field out, like, geez, I might want to go into business. Let me spend a little time in a business and see what it's like. Or I want to go into something, into education. Let me, shadow a teacher for a little while to see what it's like. So your points are very valid, and we appreciate your input.
Great.
Thank you.
Dr. Tutwiler.
Good job.
Yeah, just quickly to bring it full circle, Balaji should not be modest. He works in an electronics store in Saugus. If you've been there, he's there. He makes himself known. I bumped into him there. His manager could not wait to tell me that his sales, that he's a great kid. I'm like, I already know that, but that his sales are higher than any other employee in the store, and he works the fewest hours. So.
Great job, great work.
I do work at Best Buy, so if anyone needs
I said an electronics store. I was trying not to, go there.
I think everybody's heading up there. So.
That's why his sales are so high. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
for the
you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the early childhood program.
Early childhood program? Yeah. Is this one we're voting on? Okay.
Any discussion? Superintendent, Dr. Tutwiler.
Can I just set the table by being clear about what you're voting on? We're currently in a 2-day, 3-day model. You're aware of that. The option is to go back to a 5-day AM/PM model. Ms. Jamerson was here at our last meeting. She presented last year as well. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to speak for you if that's okay. We just want to make clear from a school department standpoint that, as was dutifully pointed out earlier, there is a cost savings, but that's our primary responsibility is for the outcomes and the experiences of young people. So that's not even on my radar, to be honest with you. We've also been clear that there are pros and cons to either, to both of them. And so we don't feel, this administration doesn't feel strongly about keeping the 2-day, 3-day program.
So just a question.
Member Satterwhite and then Member Gately.
So if we, we were talking about the 4-day with the 1 day used for whatever is typically used, I think, at the Y. So if we approve a 5-day and that ends up being 4 days for the student and 1 day for whatever needs.
That's where I'm confused.
So take that out of your mind altogether.
Okay.
That's an idea that can happen in an AM/PM, but what you're voting on is a 5-day.
One or the other. Okay.
AM/PM
Well, and that's what I wanted to
versus-
clarify. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I also, may I make
Yes,
one other
Dr.
point?
Talbot.
One of the things that we attempted to do with the increase in last year's state Chapter 70 funding was to address the needs, the compliance and service needs in special education. We took a big step forward, but we're not even close to being there in terms of enough staffing to service students' needs. I just want to be clear that what was shared earlier from the therapist standpoint, there could be an improved experience in the AM/PM program for therapists, but we still would be woefully understaffed in terms of meeting student needs. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Member Satterwhite.
If it's someone else, I was just going to make the motion. If anyone else has questions.
I wanted to ask. So we're just voting on that 5-day AM/PM, and I just want to make sure that the special ed director is able to get space in the day to be able to do testing. And I thought that 1 day on Monday and then the 4 AM/PMs was like a model that she sort of would prefer, so we could get into compliance. And I don't think people would mind if it's AM/PM. But if we're voting on the 5-day AM/PM, but I am a little confused about that other issue.
Yep.
Dr. Tutwiler, you want to?
So just quickly, and Ms. Jamerson can keep me honest here, that idea of the 4-day with the fifth day being for testing, play groups, things of that nature would allow. So it allows for more flexibility around testing. The root cause is we're understaffed. Yeah. We don't have enough people. So you might have the flexibility to do it, but without additional staffing,
I get it.
the net gain is going to be very small.
Okay.
Member Nicholson?
Yeah, I briefly, because last meeting I had thanked Ms. Jeremy Shedd and the administration for the thoughtful presentation and the time for us to deliberate and make this decision in time for the next year. And I also just wanted to thank the therapists and educators that we've heard from for sharing their perspective. I think it speaks a lot to the district and the culture I think everyone's trying to create here, where we can have those conversations and get those kinds of feedback. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Member Satterwhite?
It's going to be Member Gately. Are you making a motion to approve?
I'm going to make a motion to approve the early childhood program to a 5-day AM PM.
Second.
Is the second. Requires a roll call.
Ms. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is ratification of votes taken in the Building Grounds Subcommittee.
There was one vote taken in the Building and Grounds Subcommittee, and that was to approve the use of the Lynn English parking lot for the carnival to raise funds for the fireworks. I want to move it to the full committee.
Okay.
Just one.
Roll call.
Yes. Question, Member
What's
Member
the
Capola.
date of the carnival?
It'll be school vacation week.
School vacation. Okay. Which one?
April.
Make your plans.
Ms. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. Next on the agenda is ratification of votes taken in the Personnel Subcommittee.
And we did have one, but
Was it tabled?
no, it was not table. It was a motion. I was going to ask you, Nancy, for the wording on it, because the wording.
I wrote it down.
I have it if you need it.
I got it. Motion made by Michael Satterwhite to remove from the table and to approve the position and approval of the job posting at the next meeting and move to the full committee.
So,
Second it?
Is there a second?
Second?
Requires roll call.
Ms. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. And before we move on to the communications and information, I've had correspondence with I've spoken to Matt Donovan at the Mass School Building Authority about both Jack McCarthy and Matt Donovan coming in to make a presentation, which they are not going to be available on the 13th, but we'll work towards hopefully the following meeting. They have a big meeting on the 13th, so that would not work for them. So I will keep the committee informed. But they are willing to come and make a presentation. So, and I know that's been, I know all the members are looking to that, so I just want to give, keep all of you informed as we continue to try and get them here and then make some decisions moving forward. And again, a statement of interest, if we so desire, and I think there's a lot of, there are discussions and meetings going on. It's due April 1st.
Yeah.
And I know the council is also aware of that, so I think it will be helpful to have them here and see how we can start to take steps to move forward. So,
Thank you.
okay. Next is the superintendent's report, communications and information.
Happy to share. You have the superintendent's report in your packet. It's lengthy, so I think. I think I'm gonna talk at a high level about what's in it, and then I'm certainly happy to answer any questions for you. As I referenced earlier in the meeting, We are rounding the final corner in our collaborative budget meetings within the district with building leaders and directors. We've also had 2 budget forums. We're soliciting input broadly about needs and people's thoughts about how additional funding should be allocated going forward. In the coming weeks, as the process proceeds, with the dust settling as it relates to that state funding, we'll have all of that feedback to bring to bear on our decision making, and we're going to be working on a way to share with you in a sort of neat, concatenated way the feedback that we got from all of those mechanisms, all of those meetings and the feedback. And so I just wanted to let you know, give you a little sense for what we've been up to, given that the governor has released his budget, and I'll keep you posted as we go forward. Also in the superintendent's report is an update on suspensions. In recent years, that's been a full presentation. I chose to give an update, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Many of the interventions and our approach to reducing suspensions have not changed. They've only expanded or been refined, and so it would be a very similar presentation to previous years. So it just seemed to make sense to just share the data with you and let you know that those interventions continue. You'll notice that our rate of suspension is 1/10 of a point lower than it was last year, which matches the all-time low for the district on suspensions. That is not to say that we are complacent and we are done with that work. We are continuing to increase mental health supports, social-emotional supports, because we really feel like that's the path forward on reducing suspensions. And also other supports such as the positive alternative to school suspensions for students who are engaged in substance use on high school campuses. If you look at the back, nope. The first data page at the bottom, you'll notice that there's a spike in middle school suspensions. And so we've peeled back the layers on that data, and I can tell you in no uncertain terms that it's due to increased incidents around vaping, and in particular in the 6th grade. So the answer to that starts with education, and we've got some work to do with weaving information about vaping into our health curriculum. But I will be very honest that the challenge is, it's a challenge because even in the adult community, there's a sort of a low view of harm around vaping. And so when the adults are engaged in that behavior, it's hard to tell the kids not to be engaged in that behavior. And so we're continuing to think about how to increase the substance of curriculum around this, but you can see, and the data makes clear that it's a significant issue. I'm happy to answer any questions about that before I move on to the last part, which I will read.
Member Nicholson?
Thank you. So, thank you for sharing this data. I really appreciate it. And the presentations that you had given previously on the strategies and interventions were terrific, and it's encouraging that the overall district is improving on this measure. Obviously, concerning about what's going on in the middle schools, and it sounds to me like what you're saying is the set of whatever interventions are being offered for our middle school students are going to be changed, and that we're addressing specifically this issue.
Yeah, and so one of the number of suspensions around vaping at the middle school have spiked. That's not to say that there aren't incidents at the high school level around vaping, but they've got the PASS program at their as a resource, and that is, talk about addressing an issue at the source. You need support, you need counseling, you don't need to be sent home for days on end. It's not going to fix the problem, but that doesn't exist for middle school students, and so we need to find a way to create that same sort of support for students, or else that number's going to continue to increase.
And is that planned? Because the idea is that with that is that you're keeping kids in school, and that's even, I think, potentially more concerning in the earlier grades, because the students are setting up their attitudes and expectations and habits for the rest of their education and time with us.
That's right. Yep.
Member Ford, then Member Castellanos.
I've mentioned it to Mike in the health meetings, but I've strongly felt over the last few years that we should really start introducing drug intervention and the vaping in the elementary. I think we're being terribly naive to think they're not doing it yet, because I know cases of kids dealing in the 4th and 5th grade. So it's there. They know about it, whether we know they know it. And I think we should start in the elementary rather than wait to middle school.
Yeah, I mean, there's schools of thought on when it's appropriate to introduce that kind of material. And
3rd, 4th, and 5th, not in the...
Well, I was going to agree with you, Mr. Ford, by saying that the middle school suspension or the incidence around vaping being really high in the 6th grade says that you need an earlier intervention. It can't start in 6th grade.
Member Castellanos.
So I just want to kind of echo what Member Ford mentioned. So we were in a vaping crisis. There is a lack of adolescent services in terms of addiction services. It's very complicated, how fast it spread. These are high capacity vaping pods with nicotine that is just high grade quality. They're getting these kids hooked. Ultimately leading to it's very easy to hide. It's very hard for teachers to enforce. It's hard to keep the numbers are so high where it just gets overwhelming, and ultimately it gets staff. It gets overwhelmed in terms of how can I say? It's not manageable. It's so vital that we start aiming at the prevention. As we work with the state, I know the state's taken measures. I think the city's taken steps. But I agree. I think the younger that we teach our students about these types of health risk, especially when you look at the vaping companies, they target younger populations with flavors, and they target them with these false perceptions of a substance that could be very harmful to their lungs, to their overall body makeup. It's something that a campaign, I think, I might have discussed this earlier on when the vaping crisis came out. I think there's so many different campaigns available. I think Lynn Public Schools and leadership should take a look at what other districts are doing to combat the vaping issue. So,
Member Satterwhite.
Well, I think that what hurts when you don't read the entire superintendent, there's certain aspects of it that we miss. So I like.
I was being thorough enough.
No, you did great. But I don't want to leave without everyone understanding that there are thoughts and beliefs that the district currently has on how to attack or to approach this issue, and that is our last meeting we had someone with the PBIS come and speak about that and the benefits of that. In addition to that, the mental health support and increased staffing around that area in our middle schools are extremely important as well. But also looking outside of the box and making sure that we're utilizing all tools possible. My daughter's in middle school; she's in the 6th grade, and she knows about vaping. And it's bothersome. But I knew about cigarettes in elementary school, so it's not like it's much of a difference. But again, there's at least a future lens as to how we can address these underlying issues, and it's within the report. It just wasn't stated out loud.
Dr. Tutwiler?
I mean, you raised cigarettes, and that was something that I wanted to say something about quickly as it relates to perception of harm. If you look at our youth risk behavior survey data, cigarette use is almost non-existent, right? Because there's been enough of a campaign out there to show the harmful effects of smoking. That doesn't exist for vaping, right? And so the perception of harm is super low, and adults are using as well. And so it's not, shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that the epidemic that exists around vaping.
Member Gately.
Dr. Tutwiler, I think that in the past, vaping was looked at like that. But over the past 6 months to a year, people are dying, and their lungs, and the research is coming out now because it was so new, it was such a quick, like people couldn't find it, you couldn't detect it in the bathrooms. But now with the research coming out showing the effects of it, it will probably be like a Surgeon General warning, this is not good for your health and you shouldn't be doing this. And so hopefully as more research comes out, it will be better for our students because they'll know of the dangers because of plastic. Just like Camel Joe is no longer on TV, we will not have bubblegum flavored Juuls. So I'm hopeful with our society. Thank you for bringing this up.
Just quickly, do you have any kind of idea or expectation on like a timeline for something similar to the PASS program being brought to the middle school?
Well, the PASS program lives under the North Shore Consortium umbrella. So it's not even, it's an outside program that we pay $10,000 to be part of, and we're allowed to send students to it. I mean, the wise thing would be to create our own program in the district. It just costs money, you know what I mean? And so, and you need the resources to make it happen. But there's an effective model. And the space. And the space, right.
So is that something you guys are evaluating, or?
It's something we've thought about. Yes.
But, okay, yeah, just
the curriculum part or the PASS?
The PASS. The thought
it's,
about, and you're currently in thinking stages, or you thought about and decided you couldn't do it?
At a high level, thinking about it. I mean, there are lots of challenges with pulling off a program like that when there are
the people
space
who run the
challenges.
PASS program, when we met with them the last time, they talked about and acknowledged the need of a middle school program. So I think that program itself, the people who developed it and run it, are also thinking about that. So, we will continue conversations with them. We will continue conversations at the district level about possibly doing our own. But we're at the very beginning stages of it.
Okay, thank you.
Member Ford?
I just wanted to, basically, Lorraine mentioned the Surgeon General effort that we went through in the 70s and 80s. I think it's going to take the same type of an effort to do that, where they show the graphic,
Sure.
the jaws missing and the graphic pictures. I think it's going to take that to reinstill that program.
Last,
Dr.
if I may,
Tutwiler?
I just want to point out one thing, there's a comparative in this data, looking at Lynn's suspension data versus Brockton versus Boston versus Lawrence and Springfield, and consistently, at least since I've been here and presented this data, Boston has always had a small suspension rate. I had a theory about that I wanted to share with you. Now, they do have having worked there, some pretty substantive social emotional supports, mental health supports. They do the comprehensive behavior health model in a number of their schools. But my theory is, if pretty much a universal truth is that suspensions in elementary are much, much lower than they are in the secondaries, right? Even in Lynn, our elementary suspension rate is tiny. When you look at the enrollment in the city of Boston, more than 70% of their student body is in elementary. Their secondary population has been shrinking for years. So I don't necessarily when you look at all of the other, similar communities, similar demographics, but much higher suspension rates, my theory is that they're largely elementary.
Does the state publish it by grade?
What's that?
Does the state publish the grade by school?
Suspension rates by?
Yeah.
I've not seen that. The enrollment by level, yes. Well, you would have to do a proportional math exercise, which I'm not going to be able to do. But my theory is that they're largely elementary, and that's why the suspension rates are so low. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Thank you.
We'll follow your lead.
Okay.
Chuck, is that what it is?
Yep. And so, lastly, the Department of Elementary and Secondary has not yet, well, actually, when I wrote this, they haven't, but they've released graduation data. It's embargoed at this point in time. We'll be doing a presentation or a share about that data when we're allowed to. And there's some good news in there, I will say that. But there are new support and intervention strategies being implemented, namely Youth Harbors. Youth Harbors is a Justice Resource Institute program that serves homeless, unaccompanied high school students. This is a program that we'd referenced in our budget presentation last spring. Students fitting these descriptors are 87% more likely than their housed peers to drop out of high school. Youth Harbors eligible students are ambitious, hardworking students who are determined to complete their high school education. This is difficult, however, when considering the hierarchy of need, food and housing. Youth Harbors works to ensure that these youth are safely housed and given the tools and the skills they need to be able to focus on their future and achieve success. Youth Harbors offers a wraparound service delivery model to meet each youth's individual needs. Students are deemed eligible for the program based solely on the criteria of being unaccompanied and homeless, and offered a host of services including but not limited to housing and individualized life skills workshops. There's more detail in that report. The program is flexible so as to meet the unique needs of each homeless youth. Clients generally stay in the program for a total of 6 to 12 months, after which they are eligible for alumni services. We are partnered with Youth Harbors, and we're excited to share that we're currently in the process of hiring a full-time social worker and a full-time case manager who will provide intensive wraparound support for our homeless and unaccompanied youth. We're excited about weaving this support into our dropout prevention effort. It's much needed, targeted, and effective. Awesome. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle.
Motion to
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
It's a record.
8. Whoa.